And we are joined tonight, as you know, by Susie Boniface and Sebastian Payne. Welcome to both of you. We're going to start with the Mail and that headline. The Mail usually supportive of a Conservative administration. How much more can she and the rest of us take? Susie?
Well, they're not just supportive. I mean, the Mail's doing an enormous reverse ferret here because the Mail, throughout the leadership campaign, was massively supportive of Liz, pushed her well ahead of all the other contenders. And in the last few weeks, while she's been facing these troubles, and they've been starting, even after the budget, they lauded the budget as the best Tory budget in recent history, and it was going to solve all our problems. And now they're saying we can't take any more, and they're actually calling her first 38 days in office have proved some of the most shambolic in British political history. It's pretty devastating right through on the front page, which won't make very happy reading inside there tomorrow morning when she wakes up.
No, Sebastian, especially coming from the Mail.
No, and I just want to read you the introduction from the Mail's piece tomorrow to give you an idea of just how much of a reverse ferret, as you call it, Susie, the Mail have done. Her first 38 days in office have proved some of the most shambolic in British political history. And this is a newspaper that fully backed Liz Truss's leadership bid, that throughout everything we've seen since she became Prime Minister just over a month ago, they've been foursquare behind. And now they're essentially saying the game is over, and many of the other newspapers tomorrow, who are maybe less supportive of Liz Truss, say that as well. But coming from the Mail, that just shows how much Conservative opinion behind Liz Truss has collapsed in the past 24 hours. And the general mood in Westminster tonight is not if Liz Truss goes, it's when she goes. And I think when you've lost the Mail, you've lost the Daily Telegraph, you've lost MPs. The only people I think she's still got on her side are her cabinet, who have all been quite supportive and tweeting for the moment.
Do you know something that we don't?
Well, no, but if they've been tweeting support, Sebastian says, I mean, putting out the approved graphics that they've been handed by the press office, but when people approach them and say, will you go on the record, will you come do an interview, will you go on television? Oh, no, sorry, I'm a bit busy, I'm doing something else. So they're not supportive enough to actually come out and defend it because they know they can perhaps sense that it's going to become indefensible quite soon.
We know someone who is going to support it, and that is the new Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, who, as you were saying, Gillian, is doing the broadcast rounds in the morning, and he's going to have to answer some very big questions about the government's economic strategy, because as well as replacing Kwarteng today, the Prime Minister has junked half her economic platform, which was not just a budget, it was the whole purpose Liz Truss exists, the reason that she occupies that black door there. And with her economic policy gone, what Tory MPs are saying tonight, and it's reflected on many of the papers, is what's the point of the Liz Truss administration if you're not going to do this tax-cutting dash for growth? Then you're just existing, and at the moment it barely feels like she's doing that.
Let's go back to what's been happening today, and obviously the sacking of Kwesi Kwarteng. Is that the sole reason that you think the mood has changed?
It's one of those things where she didn't have any alternative. Either she had to say the whole jig's up, we're all off, or she had to make someone take the blame for this. So she had no little option but to fire him. And it seems this evening that he found out from seeing reports in the Times, read it on Twitter, when his plane landed, but Jeremy Hunt had actually had a call at 9:30 in the morning, well before Kwasi even knew he'd been sacked. And the Times actually is quoting, or not quoting, but a source close to Kwasi saying that he thinks that her firing him isn't going to actually save her skin at all. It's going to buy her a few weeks, but that's it. The wagons are circling. And so it just sort of extends things a bit. It doesn't actually save her, because even having got rid of him, what has she done to show herself? She's shown herself disloyal. She's shown herself hypocritical and doing yet another U-turn. She's showing herself trying to double down publicly, as we saw in that press conference this afternoon, but yet still having to find a way to claw back some of the things that she was going to push for. And in fact, her decision to bring back that corporation tax increase, massive 6% on business tax bills overnight, even though they've been expecting it for a while, businesses have also been expecting a recession. They're pulling their horns in. They're trying not to do any excess spending. To suddenly raise those taxes as well is going to really crush growth that she says she's been going for. And like Sebastian says, if she is actually stopping growth with her policies, what is the point of a Liz Truss?
And Sebastian, it's hardly a reset if she was, hand in glove with the ex-Chancellor, Kwesi Kwarteng, in formulating the economic policy. She's just as culpable as he is.
Well, the key thing in his resignation letter, which both of them were quite an odd exchange of letters when you looked at the tone and the language used between the Prime Minister and the former Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng made it very clear this is your policy, your strategy. We did this together. And he said he was very sorry to be asked to resign. Liz Truss, in her letter, said she was sorry that he decided to go. So they're two completely different stories, which normally you don't see in those exchanges of letters. They normally stick to the same script. Either you decide to go or you're pushed out the door. The reason I think Kwasi Kwarteng had to go was the markets. They just did not believe that the government's economic strategy was credible. And by the way, they still don't believe it, because Liz Truss gave probably the most bizarre press conference I've seen a Prime Minister give today. It was 8 minutes long. She came on stage, gave a very brief, terse statement explaining that she was still going on in the national interest as she talked about it, and then tried to take questions from the media, took 4 questions, and then just stormed off the stage and walked out, went back to whatever she was doing before. That did not reassure markets, and the fact is that £60 billion package that was announced, £20 billion of it has been pulled away, but there's still £40 billion that need to be answered for, and we've got no indication from the Chancellor, from the new Chancellor Jeremy Hunt and the Prime Minister, how that's going to be paid for. And until they can explain how the sums add up, which is going to be either junking the rest of this mini-budget or massive spending cuts, then the markets are not going to trust this government. So Jeremy Hunt's got a huge challenge on her hand. I would probably predict, although no one should really predict anything at the moment, we have not seen the last of the U-turns, even though Jeremy Hunt agreed with Liz Truss there will be no more U-turns.
The Guardian describing it as a day of chaos, and the press conference, as you say, not very well received. Even Conservative backbenchers saying that actually they felt that her performance made everything worse.
Well, exactly. If you come out, if you've got this kind of situation, you need to come out and appear to be as honest and as open as possible. You take up questions from everybody, and you don't read off the script in front of you as you're responding. You speak openly and honestly, and you say, look, we've made a mistake.
That's classic crisis comms.
I'm trying to do this right. Let me explain things to you, and we'll see where we go from here, kind of thing. You do it properly. And she did it appallingly badly, considering she's got an entire comms team in there advising her, and they must have been practicing for half the day. And she still came out and was, spent a lot of time looking around the room trying to find a friendly journalist, a friendly face. So, oh, someone's going to ask me a nice question. Looked awful while she was doing it. Picked someone who immediately asked her a very hostile question. And she's busy saying that, and it's been quoted everywhere, she's acted decisively, she's been decisive, she's taken decisive action, but there's been no thought before the decisions were made. And unfortunately, despite the way the markets have panicked and so on, she is doing, to be fair to her, exactly what she said she was going to do in the leadership race.
That's not
Pretty
right.
much.
No. She said she was going to do corporation tax. She was going to do national insurance. She didn't say she was going to bring forward the income tax cut by 1 year. She didn't say she was going to cut the top rate of tax. And this is the point, that in that leadership contest, she was guiding the markets towards what she was going to do. And when you normally have a budget, there's 3 elements. You have the tax, you have the spend, you have the fiscal framework. She did the tax, she still hasn't done the spend, and she still hasn't done the fiscal framework. So I think it was the fact that she went over and abroad what she said in the leadership contest that made it so difficult.
My point is that what she was saying in the leadership contest was very much making it clear that she was going to be this kind of Prime Minister. And it was not going to be a situation normal. It wasn't going to be the Treasury orthodoxy. It was going to be sudden, and it was going to be a brave new world kind of thing. But at this point, we're in a situation now where she could do a slingshot round the sun and it still wouldn't be a big enough U-turn to save her. She is going to have to go at some time. And as Seb said earlier on, it's a matter of when, not if, and also how. What's the mechanism that the Tory MPs find to displace her? Because they need to, they just don't have the way of doing it yet.
Let's have a look at the Telegraph. Sebastian, take us into this. Truss clings to power after axing Kwarteng, many suggesting that he's simply been a scapegoat.
Yes, and I think if you were Kwasi Kwarteng pouring a stiff drink tonight, you might be feeling a little bit peeved by the situation, because he's actually done everything Liz Truss wanted him to do in this situation. He hasn't gone against her. There's not been any big rows between number 10 and number 11.
That, hasn't he?
Exactly, and he's essentially been sacked because the markets didn't believe in the strategy, but it was a strategy that was made between these 2 buildings behind us. It wasn't just the Prime Minister who came up with this. But I think the crucial thing is the point that you raised earlier, Susie, from the Times, which is saying that Mr. Kwarteng believes she hasn't got that much longer left. And I think by putting in Jeremy Hunt, it has brought her some credibility. You know, he's from the left of the Tory party. That was a clear decision made to try and win over moderate MPs. He's been Foreign Secretary, he's been Health Secretary, he's been an MP since 2005, so he's got a decent track record, although I would say he's never done a single thing in the Treasury. He's got no financial experience, no fiscal experience.
Liz Truss has got 10 years in government. It's not got her very far, is it?
It's got it to Prime Minister.
Yeah, but where's she going next, Sebastian? Up or down? Where do you?
I'll leave that question for recruitment agents. But I think the key point here is that Jeremy Hunt has got. There's 18 days, in theory, until October the 31st, when he's got to try and make these sums add up. He's got to do the media rounds. He's got to explain.
He's got his work cut
He
out.
certainly does.
Just to end, a little bit of support in the Express, the headline vultures circling, but the Star, lettuce with longer life than Truss, Susie,
Yes,
very quickly.
This is based on, there was an excoriating piece in The Economist earlier this week saying that because of when she came in and then take away the 10 days of mourning for the Queen, the actual amount of control that Liz Truss had over her government was about 7 days, which is the shelf life of a lettuce. I would suggest it's probably worse than that. Lettuce carries on quite a long time. I think we're looking at raw poultry.
Susie and Sebastian,
10 days,
thank you
the
very
Star
much.
will go
in.
We have come to the end